Good evening. I'm Leland Vittert. President Biden went to Georgia to warn that the country is growing back to Jim Crow without immediate action now. The lieutenant governor of that state joins us to explain why the Peach State is not a racist backwater, as the president says. First, we start here in America with the empty shelves crisis. It's coming back to a supermarket near you. In fact, in many parts of the country, it's already here. Depending on where you live, it might be paper products, meat, frozen dinners, or vegetables. Store shelves are bare, much like before a hurricane, perhaps even much like the very beginning of the pandemic when people panicked. Part of it, of course, is people stocking up, but a bigger part is the supply chain crisis. Here's how some other media outlets describe things. Washington Post, 4 reasons you're seeing empty grocery store shelves. The Omicron surge, extreme weather, and record December sales are among the reasons that toilet paper is, well, a hot commodity right now, and the food you find will be more expensive, both for delivery like Domino's, which now is warning of soaring food costs, but at the grocery store as well. The basics are going to cost more than ever. General Mills, Kraft, Heinz, and others are going to raise prices on everything from ketchup and candy to cereal. Stuck between all of us and the rising prices are the people with the empty shelves. The supermarket owners like John Catsimatidis, who owns dozens of stores in New York and joins us now. Appreciate you being with us, sir. Thank you. We see the pictures of empty store shelves. Is this real and we should be worried, or is this being made up by the media?
No, it's real in a lot of sections of our country, and we have a lot of concerns. It's a double problem. The problem is with the Omicron going around, a lot of people are calling in sick. It's the whole supply chain, whether people calling in sick at the warehouses, people calling in sick that are loading the trucks, or people that are calling in sick that are driving the trucks. And the second problem is the fact that gasoline has doubled in price and that crude oil is back to $80 a barrel again. And we could solve that problem very easily, except Washington doesn't want to solve it. We have 100 years worth of oil in Canada, in Alaska. All we have to do is open up the spigots and bring it down from Canada and Alaska. Yeah. And I believe that crude oil will go down $20 a barrel. Yeah, and that'll solve.
Well, you think about fracking, and you think about fracking in Texas and on federal lands in Pennsylvania, and then out in the West. We did that story yesterday. It's a great point. There's a part of this that is hoarding. Obviously, as soon as people hear there's not much toilet paper, everybody goes out and buys toilet paper. The problem gets worse. But grocery stores have been doing pretty well through all this. Amazon stock up 85%. They, of course, own Whole Foods. Target's up 125%. Kroger up 54%. Albertsons up 117%. Walmart stock's up 26%. You guys, I know, have been doing well as well. And part of that's got to be because you can pass on the higher prices to consumers.
Well, as we get higher prices from manufacturers, again, you were talking about toilet paper. There's a shortage of Charmin, where we can't get any Charmin most of the times. And
I got to ask you, though, how is it always struggles with me, surprising me with toilet paper. It's not like meat that suddenly people are buying more meat. The amount of toilet paper you use is pretty steady throughout the year. Why all of a sudden can't you find toilet paper? Are they not making it anymore?
No, they're making it just as much as ever. You know what it comes down to, Leland? It's the fear. In the last year and a half, 2 years in our country, fear has been driving the bus. If you always had 2 8-packs or 2 4-packs of toilet paper in your home, the fear that they might run out, you might have double that. If everybody buys double what they usually buy, you're going to have a shortage. And the same thing with gasoline. And except that the fact is that the price of crude oil has doubled, and we're buying oil from Russia. We're buying oil from OPEC at double the price, at $80 a barrel. When people are paying double the price for gasoline, you know what happens? The costs go up, right, and they raise the prices. And you know what happens when you have smart CEOs that are dependent on Wall Street? They raise the prices faster than the prices are going up, so they don't have a bad quarter, and Wall Street punishes them.
Yeah, well, they have to do that, and that sort of is why we look at the pictures of the supply chain, sort of everything backs up, and then the prices cascade down. Us consumers are at the very end. Jerome Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, who's up for another term, said this today. I wanted to get your thoughts after we listen.
We know that high inflation exacts a toll, particularly for those less able to meet the higher costs of essentials like food, housing, and transportation.
Seems like, well, no kidding, Sherlock, but you've got to be feeling this also in the grocery stores. Are we at the point now where lower income folks in New York are having to make some very hard choices that they didn't have to make a year or two ago?
The White House and Washington is punishing the poor people and punishing the poor middle class because those are the people, when prices go up at the gas station, when prices go up on the shelves, when prices go up in their meat departments and in the price of chicken, pork, eggs, when the prices go up, who gets punished? It's not the wealthy folks. It is the poor folks. The poor get punished, and that's a sin. And the lower middle class get punished. That's a sin. We can, Washington can bring the prices down, not by necessarily raising interest rates. You raise interest rates, you're going to have a whole cycle again of costs for corporations going up. When the cost for a corporation goes up, guess what they do? They reflect it.
So
they reflect it in the price of their products.
They have to do that. There's sort of two separate issues here, right? And they overlap, certainly. One is the prices going up of things. The other is the empty shelves crisis. And then comes the question of, does the system begin to break down? Certainly, we look at a place like Cuba, which is where this goes to the extreme. It's a daily ordeal Cubans have endured for 60 years of economic communist rule, now worsened by the coronavirus pandemic and an economic downturn. They're queuing up for hours just to be able to get some bread in that. Obviously, that's not coming to America anytime soon. But as you've studied this and been in this business for a long time, is there a tipping point where it's not just going to be, oh, there's no meat today in this grocery store, but there is down the street, to where we're really going to have potential real shortages in America?
I'm not going to say to you there's no possibility of it happening. There's always a possibility of it happening. But we got to bring our costs down, the cost for Americans. And the way you bring it down is by bringing down the cost of crude oil. We can bring it back down to $60 a barrel if we bought it from Alaska, if we bought it from Canada. I mean, why are we buying it from Putin? Why are we buying it from OPEC? And why are we paying them $80 a barrel?
It's a great question. We tackled it yesterday, but what we didn't talk about yesterday, and one of the reasons we're so happy to have you on, is because the effects of all of these things and the price of oil goes into rising prices for so many other things. I really appreciate you coming on, and I know it's a fake Zoom background, but boy, does that sunset look beautiful behind you. It's a great way to think and dream.
We all dream, and we all hope that sun is real.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Leland.
Do you want to be on the side of Dr. King or George Wallace? Do you want to be on the side of John Lewis or Bull Connor? Do you want to be on the side of Abraham Lincoln or Jefferson Davis?
That was President Biden, in really a blistering speech earlier about changing our federal election laws. And if you didn't know better, you'd almost think we were living in the post-Civil War era with that kind of rhetoric. More importantly, he called on the Senate to get rid of the filibuster. He says it's a necessity to pass Democrats' voting legislation. He says he's not going to be quiet about this anymore. The filibuster is the process senators use to block or delay a confirmation vote or a bill. It requires 60 senators to vote in favor of ending debate on legislation, which is higher than the 51 votes needed to pass the legislation. Senators have used the filibuster more than 2,000 times since 1917. President Biden, as a senator, was a big supporter of the filibuster. But roughly half of those 2,000 filibusters have happened in the past decade. It's clear President Biden picked Georgia for a reason, and his call to change Senate rules could have major implications on U.S. public policy far beyond the voting legislation. With that, we bring in Georgia Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan. Good to see you, sir. We appreciate it. I'm going to let you gloat about the Georgia Bulldogs a little later, but I wanted to get to a couple of questions from President Biden's speech brought up. He basically set up this paradigm that if you're not with him, you are a racist, was the sort of bottom line of the speech. Are Georgia's election laws racist?
I don't think so. It sounded like the sound bites that I heard from President Biden's speech today sounded like he was taking a playbook out of the former president's playbook. And, the chief divider, it certainly wasn't words that matched the realities.
Forgive me, which former president are you talking about, Trump or Obama?
Well, I'm talking about Trump at this specific moment. But
okay.
at this point in time, look, we don't have election problems. We have politics problems. At the end of the day here in Georgia, we just ran an election, and I'm one of those Republicans that's proud to say we ran a fair, legal election here in Georgia, and 1 million more people voted in 2020 than in 2016. We're certainly not having any problems here in Georgia. But once again, he wants to use this shiny object to divert attention away from his failed policies, his failed decisions, and even his own party doesn't agree with his actions, which is why some folks, including Stacey Abrams, wouldn't even show up today.
Yeah, I thought that was absolutely fascinating. People who didn't show up to President Biden's speech. Stacey Abrams, who is running for governor in Georgia, voting rights is one of her biggest issues. She didn't show up and snubbed the president. I'm wondering, why is that? Is President Biden that unpopular in Georgia?
Well, I think, quite honestly, he's that unpopular around the country at this point. It's nobody, even the folks on the left, can explain some of these rash decisions and inactions. I mean, we've got a global pandemic going on. Folks can't get test kits. Prices of groceries and every other commodity are skyrocketing. There's no plan. There's no direction. We're afloat at sea with no engine. And that's why, as Republicans, I think we need to get our act together, start focusing on the next election, put some visions out there of what America can actually do if we're all on the same page, and go win some elections.
Yeah, you think about it, and no one wants the President of the United States to do poorly, because that hurts the country. No one wants to see the President of the United States flailing, and it certainly seems like the Biden administration really is flailing right now, just desperate for a win. They go from meat prices to energy prices to COVID to Build Back Better, on and on and on, looking for this win. They can't seem to find one. What do you think it says that, in the end, they're seemingly willing to change the rules effectively in order to get a win? Desperate people do desperate things. Sometimes it works.
Yeah, I think it's a huge mistake to change that filibuster rule. I think that, look, it's been in place for a long time for a reason. It's supposed to be hard to pass legislation because you got to build consensus, and it's a place for bad ideas to hit the pause button. And right now, it's a bad idea. I want our state to run our election. I think we did a great job. And yes, I'm a Republican, and I think we did a great job in Georgia in our last election. Unfortunately, a Republican did not win at the top of the ticket. I don't want the federal government telling us how to vote, when to vote, how, all of those details. That's not their place.
Yeah, well, the Republican senators didn't win either. This is Senator Manchin, though, saying you may not get your wish, that he might vote, and he is the key vote, to end the filibuster. Take a listen.
We need some good rules changes, and we can do that together. But you change the rules with 2/3 of the people that are present. So it's Democrats and Republicans changing the rules to make the place work better. Getting rid of the filibuster does not make it work better.
And then he said some other stuff later in the day, so it's possible you could see a change. You think about the federal government running elections. They're not admittedly very good at running much of anything, but you think about the provisions in H.R. 1, which is this voting rights bill that the president so badly wants passed. A couple of the things. Restores voting rights of people who are convicted of felonies. You can argue that both ways. Requires each state to put online options for voter registration, correction, cancellation, or designating party affiliation. How can you be upset with being able to register to vote online?
Yeah, I think, look, this is a strategy I've taken down here in the Senate, in the state Senate here in Georgia, is let's take this piece by piece. Why try to gather them all together and vote on one big block and try to jam good ideas and bad ideas and unknown ideas inside of that legislation? Break it up into pieces. Let's have individual conversations. But certainly we don't need to make any rash, quick judgments around elections. Certainly I got to learn that as a Republican here in the great state of Georgia, as just one news cycle took out an entire generations worth of work in our election process, just because one person disagreed with the outcomes, and then it was a snowball effect.
94% of Americans say voting was easy. You think Democrats are going to regret not negotiating and, for example, putting voter ID out there as a carrot for Republicans?
I don't know if they're going to regret it, but I think Americans are caught in the crossfire. The Americans are actually the pawns that politicians are using right now on both outside extremes, using them and their issues to be politicized so they can pump a mail piece in your mailbox and run an ad on your Facebook account so that you only get 10% of the facts.
Governor,
that's the way we're operating.
Lieutenant Governor, you look awfully well rested for a man whose team won the national championship yesterday, and I'm quite happy that we didn't make that bet. Otherwise, I would have had to do this entire segment wearing a Georgia hat. So I'll give you a go, Dogs.
So I'm tired because I was at the game and came back. We were up way too late, my family and I, last night. But I actually went to Georgia Tech, Leland. I told you. Okay. So I'm rooting for Georgia because my oldest son goes to school there, and they had a great football season. And that was a heck of a team to watch all year.
Well, you certainly seem in better shape than the Georgia quarterback did in his interview this morning.
I didn't see it.
Yeah, look on Twitter. It's some good stuff there. We'll see you soon, sir. Thank you.
Take care, Leland.
All right. Coming up, why a North Korean missile launch grounded passenger planes on the west coast of the United States. We're going to see if the government is giving us the full story. Tonight on Prime, the search for Harmony Montgomery. New pictures from inside the 7-year-old's home. How's a 7-year-old disappear? That's tonight, 8 Central. In the minutes following a North Korean missile launch yesterday afternoon, the FAA grounded flights on the west coast of the United States. Here's one control tower explaining to a pilot what's happening.
I need you to go ahead and land at Van Nuys at this time. Some sort of national security threat's going on, and we are not allowing aircraft to maneuver in the area at the moment.
It's hard to explain what a big deal that is, not because it caused delays, but rather because such a grounding is a possible prelude to launching the Air Force's missile interceptors based on the West Coast. For obvious reasons, missiles launching and planes flying overhead is a bad combination. Quick briefer on how this works. U.S. spy satellites see the heat signature of an enemy ballistic missile. North American Air Defense Command tracks it, decides if it's a threat, sends an emergency message to the FAA, shuts down the airspace, the interceptors go up, all in about 20 minutes. NORAD says they never gave the warning to shut down the airspace after North Korea's Monday's launch because it was a test, it only went 400 miles. But somehow the airspace got shut down. For that, we bring in Barry Valentine, former acting FAA administrator. All right, let's take NORAD at their face value. They told CNN they didn't order the shutdown. Who would have the power to do this all of a sudden?
Well, unfortunately, I'm not privy to what the communications process was or how the decision process took place yesterday for that particular purpose. But as you just pointed out in the story, here in the U.S., for example, when we launch spacecraft or missiles or rockets, we don't allow airplanes to fly within proximity of that launch site or along the initial route of those vehicles. Airplanes that fly from the west coast of the U.S. to destinations in Eastern Asia, for example, Beijing or Shanghai or Seoul, fly through that same airspace where the North Koreans launched their missiles. Now, why this took place after the missile launch, because it takes, as you know, many hours to fly across the Pacific, is not clear. But it sounds as though for some prudent reason, a decision was made not to launch airplanes until they're confident that it was safe to do so.
Yeah, no, but something had to happen, right? For them to say there's some sort of national security threat going on, someone had to order this. NORAD says it doesn't. It makes you think there was a goof somewhere. Who has the power in the FAA to all of a sudden hit the stop button?
Well, the FAA wouldn't hit the stop button unless they were given a reason to do so. And so the real question here is, what was that reason? What information?
No kidding. Yeah, that's the question that nobody seems to be answering. This is what the FAA said. As a matter of precaution, the FAA temporarily paused departures at some airports along the West Coast. Full operations resumed in less than 15 minutes. The FAA regularly takes precautionary measures. We are reviewing the process around this ground stop as we do after all such events. Really, they regularly order planes to land immediately because of national security events?
No, but we haven't had one of that nature since 9/11, as you well know, where airplanes had to land. But we commonly prohibit airlines from flying over airspace in various foreign countries for safety reasons, for diplomatic reasons, for political reasons. There are a number of reasons.
Yeah,
in this particular case,
I think as you just pointed out, though, it's pretty unusual for this to happen on the West Coast all of a sudden, for them to do this. It's very unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual when you consider the flight time from the West Coast to East Asia. My only guess would be that there was some information that suggested that for some reason that airspace wasn't going to be safe several hours out. What that was is your guess and my guess. So.
Yeah, it just seems scary and terrifying in a sense. I guess hopefully somebody will start giving some more information. Kudos to the folks at the Drive who pointed all this out. We're going to keep looking into it, and obviously if we learn more, have you back to explain it. Barry, good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Leland. Yeah. Good to see you.
Appreciate it. Victims and would-be victims of violent crime are fighting back against criminals across the country. Just last night in Philadelphia, a driver pulled out a gun, shooting an armed carjacker. The teenage suspect took off wounded and admitted to police that he was at the scene. In case you're wondering, there were 3 carjackings in Philadelphia overnight. Philly's just one of the cities seeing this huge rise in gun violence. Chicago, Los Angeles, and New York have all seen a rise in homicides. David Katz, former senior special agent instructor for the Department of Justice and the DEA, also co-founder of CEO Global Security Group, on his shirt right there in case you forget the name. David, as I'm thinking about this, if the police have their hands tied and the DAs keep letting criminals out, which is happening certainly in Philadelphia and New York, regular folks, law-abiding folks, don't have a choice but to get a gun and protect themselves, and then America turns into the Wild West.
Yeah, or they do, or they just move someplace where there's actually rule of law. You know, as we were talking about, you know, on the break, the official who has the greatest effect on your life is your local DA. Now, I used to live in New York City. The new DA has decided to wrap your head around this. Robbery, armed robbery, will now be moved from felony to misdemeanor, even if a weapon is brandished, as long as they make a determination that no real harm was intended or was likely. So someone could wave a firearm, they could brandish a knife, and that's going to be a misdemeanor, armed robbery. Goodness gracious.
Yeah,
and somehow this individual thinks it's going to make things better.
Yeah, I think about this. The people who lose in this are hardworking middle class and lower middle class folks. They can't leave and move to Texas or move to Florida or South Carolina or out west Arizona or Nevada. They're stuck there. And if everybody's pulling guns, they've got to get a gun. And then all of a sudden you've got these shootouts, and pretty soon you're going to have kids on stoops getting killed with stray bullets.
Yeah, well, I mean, not pretty soon. It's happening constantly, and you see the tragic results. I mean, literally every day, there's some poor parent who's either making a hospital trip, visiting a child who's been shot, or worse, burying a child. And this is 100% at the feet of these progressive DAs, these mayors they just don't understand the concept of punishment for violent crime. You know, the police out there, they want to do the job, but why should they? When the new district attorney in New York City says that resisting arrest will no longer be prosecuted, what incentive
do you have to not resist arrest? Right. Yeah. Getting back to this point about people just beginning to arm themselves for protection because they have to, and you think about where carjackings are on the rise and the like. We're watching some videos, some of the more brazen crimes that have happened. One of the arguments that is now out there from people who don't like guns but understand there's a Second Amendment is this idea of smart guns that can be used only by the owner. Take a listen.
I'd seen the abject failure of every policy to try to do something about gun safety. Lobbying and regulations and lawsuits and, and it all goes nowhere. Not one life is saved. In fact, the statistics just keep going up.
Got guns that either have a pin pad or Bluetooth activation using a smartphone, fingerprint or Face ID, or an embedded chip that links to a wearable tag. I can't imagine what could possibly go wrong in the middle of the night when some guy breaks into your house and somehow the Bluetooth connection for the 6-digit security code doesn't get on your phone quick enough.
Yeah, well, You know, there's an axiom that we should all live by. Anything mechanical will fail when you need it most. And if you look at the demonstration, you know, the instructor, he had a good purchase on the weapon. As I understand it, there's a fingerprint sensor alongside the frame where you would normally rest your finger in what's called the universal cover mode. Okay, well, what if you're not going into cover mode? What if you're drawing from the holster, quickly getting on target? Maybe you don't have a perfect, maybe your grip is a little off because you're panicked or rushed or it's the middle of the night. You know, I mean, I have one of these. My cell phone has the fingerprint access. How many times have I've sanitized? My hands are dirty or wet, and it doesn't recognize my fingerprint. So
yeah, or your palms are sweaty because there's some guy carjacking you.
Yeah, I mean, that's the next thing. I've had my hands wet, and I can't get a fingerprint reader to recognize my print. So, is there a market for this? Yeah, I bet you there is. I mean, there are probably folks out there who might feel more comfortable. But I could tell you, this is really a training issue. If you're worried about your children getting hold of a firearm and possibly harming themselves, train them from when, like my children were all trained from the earliest point in their lives to understand and respect firearms. Train them, secure your weapons, and then you don't have that problem. Now, that being said, I can understand there might be a market for this, but as far as a general tool to put on firearms, I will never, under any circumstances, have this technology on any firearm that I may have to protect my life or my family or some innocent third party.
Imagine if all of a sudden somebody gets a bee in their bonnet on legislation that they legislate smart guns, so all the legal people have to buy smart guns and all the bad guys get the guns that still work. Hey, David, this was a great conversation as always. Thanks for hopping on with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Good to see you. 35 politicians, 35 members of Congress did better picking stocks than almost all of the major hedge funds did last year. How is that possible? And why are members of Congress still allowed to trade stocks? Plus, a woman hailed as a hero after rescuing 3 children from an icy pond. She joins Ashley Banfield. That's coming up 10/9 Central. A push to ban lawmakers in Congress from trading stocks appears to be gaining momentum on both sides of the aisle. Color us skeptical. Republican Senator Josh Hawley today told Politico he's open to a proposal from Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff that would bar lawmakers and their families from trading stocks while they are in office. Comes a day after House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says he's considering legislation banning stock trading if the GOP takes back the majority in that chamber. Last year alone, politicians and their immediate families bought $267 million worth of assets and sold $364 million. The vast majority of those trades, about 60%, were individual company stocks. And as we know, there's a lot of members of Congress who trade stocks that they have a real say over. New York Times put together the numbers there. We also found that Democrats are really into tech stocks, making up nearly half of all their purchases. Republicans are into energy stocks, including some people who are on the committees that regulate the energy companies, totaling about a third of the trades for that group versus just 1% among Democrats. Bob Cusack, editor-in-chief at The Hill, our sister company, joining us now. Boy, I feel like this is one of those things that every member of Congress says, oh, yes, I'm for, and then somehow it just never happens.
No, that's right. I mean, it was 10 years ago, 2012, where both parties came together after a very critical 60 Minutes piece and said, we need to clamp down on lawmaker trading. And the Stock Act was passed, a lot of hullabaloo, and President Obama signed it, and it passed overwhelmingly, bipartisan. The problem, Leland, though, it didn't have much teeth, and it was weakened the subsequent year. So the question is, who's going to enforce possible violations of this? It's not a clear law, and also prosecutors, while they have gone after individual members here and there for insider trading, they're very hesitant to do so just in case the case blows up in their face.
You think about it, you walk into a bank and you look at the guy who's sitting there, no disrespect, who's the investment advisor. He has way more restrictions on him than a member of Congress who sits on a committee that controls an energy company from trading stock on that energy committee. Might be one of the reasons that this caught our eye. In 2021, only 3 hedge funds beat the market. I know I'm going to hear some from hedge funds guys who said they did, but take that. In Congress, 35 politicians did even better than the market. And there's some charts showing which one of those congressmen did that. You kind of have to wonder, how is that possible? Or maybe they're just, all these members of Congress are in the wrong profession. They should be managing money.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's right. I mean, some may have gotten lucky, but at the same time, these numbers are overwhelming. And I think it's very politically smart for Kevin McCarthy to make that vow of, hey, we are going to think about banning this practice, especially after Nancy Pelosi said, no, that's okay. It's a free market economy and members can do this. You know, when I go outside the Beltway, I hear 2 things from everyday Americans. It's like, number 1, why are there not congressional term limits? And number 2, a close second is why are they allowed to trade when they clearly have inside information that the public has? And I think that has been shown for decades, not just recently.
You know, think about it, though. You've got all these members now and McCarthy who are behind this idea of limiting trading. It feels like kind of how if you ask a member of Congress, are you in favor of term limits? A lot of them will tell you yes, but then you put a bill in front of them, like Francis Rooney's bill, that cut the salary of any member of Congress after 12 years to $1, effectively putting in a term limit. And he got in trouble for putting it out as legislation.
Right. Yeah, it's something you want to, a lot of politicians, as you say, they like to say we're for that, but they're actually not willing to have legislation with teeth to it. And I think that's going to be the key decision that McCarthy, he's going to have to convince his colleagues, because the chances are, based on history and the president's low approval numbers, that the House is going to flip later this year. And is he going to use this as a political campaign, or is he actually going to affect real change? I don't know. We'll see.
You know, Bob, and one of the reasons we enjoy having you on is because you are right down the middle and you call balls and strikes, but you seemed a little skeptical in your tone of voice there.
Yeah, just because it's been done. We saw it 10 years ago and we thought, okay, this is the solution, and then the enforcement isn't there. The system of actually going through the lawmakers and what they're trading is not easy, and they've made it difficult. So it's like congressional term limits. Like, yeah, I'm for that, but not for me. Oh, and it never happens. So I do think the pressure on this is going to grow. However, I think it's early in the year, as we all know, but I think this is going to be a big election year. And Nancy Pelosi has taken some heat for what she said. No, I don't want to ban trading.
That was her comment. We'll play that, and then we'll play Andrew Ross Sorkin from CNBC, who, shall we say, rarely disagrees with Speaker Pelosi. Take a listen.
This is a free market, and we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Shouldn't we be more outraged by that? You know, you said a 60 Minutes piece back in 2012, and then we realized that 35 members of Congress beat the market. Feels like the outrage is like a flash in a pan.
And the outrage goes away quickly, and then it resurfaces when reporters do a lot of work on this. And this New York Times article required a lot of work. But overall, I do think that it's a winning political issue if you're actually going to change stuff. And because Congress took a swing at it 10 years ago, it didn't work. I think reporters and the media have to hold McCarthy and anybody else who wants to do this on both sides of the aisle accountable. Like, okay, how is this one going to work when the Stock Act of 2012 did not?
Something we will undoubtedly read about in the Hill. You guys are quite good at holding people's feet to the fire. Bob, thanks. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thanks, Leland.
All right, still ahead. Chicago students will be back in school tomorrow. What we learned from the 4-day standoff. Who's the real loser in all this when we come back? Chicago teachers are going to be back in the classroom tomorrow, as will the 340,000 public school students they teach. We've talked about this a lot this week. The teachers walked off the job in a wildcat strike over COVID policy. Never mind that remote learning is terrible for kids and increases suicides. Never mind that vaccinated and boosted teachers are at a 0 statistical risk of dying from COVID. Never mind that their contract demanded they be in person, and the teachers were seen eating out and the like while they were on their safety strike. The teachers stayed home and defied the city's progressive mayor. It became a national news story of mythic proportions and put a lot of pressure on the White House, who refused to condemn the teachers, Democratic politicians who were nowhere to be found on the issue, and the heads of the unions who constantly refused our interview requests. Because the only more powerful constituency in the Democratic Party than teachers' unions, well, are the people who hate remote learning. That would be the moms of all the kids at home rather than in school. They're a pretty powerful constituency. Would it be that unthinkable for the White House or other prominent Democrats to have told the Chicago teachers to knock it off? Nurses go to work, so do grocery store workers. You should too, and stop creating this political problem for us, could have been the phone call. We're told that the Chicago mayor held firm and, by all accounts, did not give the teachers all that much in the way of concessions for coming back to the classroom. But it's Chicago. Who knows what backroom deals were cut? Who knows what the mayor promised? In the end, of course, the kids really lose. But all of us do as well. There is an entire generation now a year or two behind. They are the future that we as Americans are all depending on. That's why at times like these, it's so important for the adults in the room, the adults, the teachers, the politicians, to actually be adults. I'll see you tomorrow night. Dan Abrams is next. Thanks for watching. Click the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.